You are 12 years old, standing in a tiny workshop while adults argue over why a machine stopped working. One man blames the gears, another blames the fuel. A third guy has absolutely no idea what's happening but still talks the loudest. And then you quietly fix it. Not because you're a genius yet, but because your brain refuses to leave broken things alone. That annoying habit? Yeah, congratulations. It's going to build one of the most famous car brands in human history. Today, you're not just designing cars, you're building Porsche. And unfortunately for your stress levels, you're also Ferdinand Porsche, a man who worked so much he probably considered sleep a design flaw. You'll survive angry bosses, impossible deadlines, economic disasters, terrible roads, engine failures, and at least one moment where you'll probably stare at a metal part for 6 straight hours, wondering why it vibrates like a washing machine full of bricks. But by the end of this journey, your name will end up on cars people literally put posters of on their bedroom walls. And honestly, not bad for a kid who started by messing around with electric motors. You are the weird kid. You're born in 1875 in a small town in the Austro-Hungarian Empire, which sounds fancy until you realize your hometown mostly consists of factories, smoke, and people yelling over machinery. Your dad wants you to take over the family plumbing business. You, meanwhile, are busy staring at electricity like it's magic. Other kids are outside playing. You're inside taking apart mechanical devices just to see how they work, which is the 1800s version of voiding the warranty. At some point, you become obsessed with electric power, and this is important because everyone else thinks gasoline is the future. You basically walk into the transportation industry saying, what if we tried something different? Which is either visionary thinking or the beginning of every engineering disaster ever. You get a job at an electrical company in Vienna. No university degree, no elite background. Just raw obsession. And honestly, that's one of the craziest parts of your story. You don't become legendary because of fancy education. You become legendary because you cannot stop building things. You know those people who relax by solving problems? That's you. Which sounds productive until you realize your brain probably hasn't experienced peace since 1889. Now, here's where things get interesting. At the turn of the century, cars are basically loud metal boxes trying their best not to explode. Nobody fully understands what the perfect automobile should look like yet. And that means opportunities. You begin designing vehicles with electric wheel hub motors, which sounds modern because it is modern. Seriously, some of your ideas were so ahead of their time that modern engineers later looked at them and went, wait, he did what in 1900? One of your early vehicles shocks people at the Paris World Fair. Not literally, well, hopefully not literally. Your designs become famous because they're innovative, lightweight, and surprisingly advanced. And here's the funny thing about engineering. The public sees a beautiful car. You see 4,000 tiny problems barely cooperating with each other. That's engineering in general, honestly. Every machine is just a carefully organized panic attack. Your career becomes ridiculous. You work for multiple companies, Daimler, Mercedes, racing programs, military vehicles. Basically, if it had wheels and an engine, someone eventually asked you to improve it, and you keep succeeding. But there's a catch. You are brilliant. You are also stubborn, which means meetings with you are probably terrifying. Imagine presenting an idea to Ferdinand Porsche. You spend 3 weeks preparing diagrams. You walk into the room. He stares silently for 10 seconds, then says, "This is too heavy." That's it. Meeting over. Back to suffering. But your obsession with performance changes everything. You believe cars should not just move, they should feel alive, fast, responsive, exciting. You're helping create the DNA that eventually becomes Porsche's identity. Not luxury first, not comfort first, performance first. Which is why modern sports cars still make grown adults behave like excited children. Now things get complicated. Because history gets messy, you become involved in designing what eventually becomes the Volkswagen Beetle, a simple, affordable car for ordinary people. And technically, it becomes one of the most successful cars ever built. But the political environment around it is bad. Very bad. Europe is entering one of the darkest periods in history, and this part of your life becomes controversial for decades afterward. Now, this isn't a history lecture, but it matters because real life is complicated. Genius doesn't automatically equal good judgment, and innovation can exist alongside morally difficult decisions. That's important to remember anytime we talk about historical figures. People are complicated, history is complicated, and success rarely comes wrapped in perfect morality. But eventually, after the war, everything changes. And suddenly, you're older, the world is rebuilding, and Porsche itself is finally becoming reality. This is where the legend truly begins. Your son, Ferry Porsche, has a simple idea. What if we build the sports car we actually want to drive? Honestly, that sentence alone probably created millions of car enthusiasts. The first Porsche, the Porsche 356, arrives. Small, lightweight, fast, and unlike giant luxury cars of the time, it feels personal. Like the car actually wants to have fun, which is basically the automotive equivalent of a golden retriever with rocket boosters. People love it, not because it's flashy, because it feels different. And this is where your engineering philosophy finally pays off. You spent your whole life chasing efficiency, simplicity, balance, and performance. Now those ideas become an entire brand identity. And eventually, that philosophy leads to one of the most iconic cars ever made, the Porsche 911. A car so recognizable that even people who know nothing about cars can spot it instantly. That shape becomes legendary. And honestly, maintaining the same general design for decades is either genius branding or the world's most successful refusal to change homework. Probably both. But let's be real for a second. People love the success story. They don't talk enough about the cost. You spend decades constantly working, constantly solving problems, constantly chasing perfection. And perfection is dangerous because it never actually exists. There's always another improvement, another adjustment, another redesign. That mindset builds incredible things. It also exhausts people. And honestly, this reminds me of when I once spent 6 straight hours editing a tiny part of a video nobody probably noticed. I changed one sound effect like 40 times. At one point, I genuinely forgot what normal audio even sounded like anymore. That's engineering energy right there. Perfectionism is basically your brain saying, if I suffer a little longer, maybe this becomes amazing. Sometimes it works. Sometimes you just lose sleep over a screw placement no human will ever notice. But that obsession, that relentless improvement, that's what separates average from legendary. Here's the crazy part. Your influence doesn't stop with one company. Modern sports car engineering still carries your fingerprints. Lightweight construction, performance-focused design, precision handling, engineering where every detail matters. That philosophy shaped generations of vehicles. And Porsche today becomes one of the most respected automotive brands on Earth. People dream about owning one. Kids put posters on walls. Adults spend hours watching exhaust videos on YouTube pretending it's research. And somehow your original vision still survives. Not because the cars are expensive, but because they feel engineered with passion. There's a difference between a product made for money and a product made by people obsessed with making something incredible. You can feel it. Whether it's a car, a film, a business, or even a YouTube channel, people can tell when someone genuinely cares. So your life as the engineer who built Porsche teaches something bigger than cars. You don't need perfect conditions to create something legendary. You don't need elite credentials. You don't need everyone believing in you. Sometimes you just need obsession, curiosity, and the willingness to keep improving something long after everyone else would have quit. Ferdinand Porsche spent his life chasing better ideas. Some worked brilliantly. Some became controversial. Some changed the world forever. But the common thread through all of it was relentless curiosity. And honestly, that mindset applies to almost everything in life. Your fitness, your skills, your business, your creativity, your future. And if you enjoyed this journey through history, engineering, and slightly unhealthy perfectionism, subscribe for more stories designed to help you think bigger, work smarter, and improve your life one step at a time. Because the next legendary life story is already waiting.